So I was on the JET program for 3 years. I was a CIR in a little town called Izumo in Shimane Prefecture. Like many JET participants, this was my first job in Japan. I went there right after graduating from college, and it was kind of my introduction to working in this country. I've also just realized that it's now July, which means that a pretty big group of people are getting ready to come to Japan for their JET experience at the end of this month or in the middle of this month. So although it's been around 10 years since I started JET, I do want to share some of my own experiences and just talk about what that was like. And hopefully it'll be useful for you if you're planning to do JET or if you're just wondering what it's like to work in Japan. So my placement was at Izumo City Hall. At the time I arrived, which was 2015, it was kind of a newer, I think they had just finished building like a new city hall. So the building itself was quite nice. My office was on the third floor of that building. And yeah, like on my first day, we flew, we finished our orientation in Tokyo. All of the JETs, ALTs and CIRs alike, who were placed in Shimane Prefecture, got on the same flight. So after arriving at the airport, one of my bosses and also my predecessor, who was another American CIR at the office, came to pick me up from the airport. And it was super casual. Like they were very friendly. We stopped by like a little family restaurant called Joyful on the way to the office, had a little lunch there. And then after that, they took me to the office and got me all set up. So at the time, the department I was part of was called Kokusai Kouryu Shitsu, and it was basically the department in charge of handling anything to do with international affairs. So occasionally we would have guests from other countries visiting, maybe for like diplomatic reasons or for business reasons. So this department would coordinate these things. More importantly than that, we were in charge of translating all documents that the city was using. Many of these were documents that were used at the city hall itself for all sorts of things like move-in procedures, applying for like a preschool for your kid, applying for health insurance, pension, all that kind of stuff that people have to do. And the reason we had to translate these documents is because this town, Izumo, actually had a pretty sizable foreign population. There were a couple of like universities, so we had a surprising number of like master's and PhD students coming from all around the world. And also we kind of handled some things like not really teaching, but we would occasionally go to like schools and not so much teach English, but rather give like presentations or talks about our own countries and what it's like to grow up in the US or what it's like living in Japan as a foreigner, and just trying to get the students to be a bit more curious and ask questions about things outside of their own country. So the Kokusai Kouryu Shitsu, or the team if you may, had 5 people. There was the boss. We called him Shitsucho because we're Kokusai Kouryu Shitsu. In a lot of other jobs, like terms like kacho and bucho are more common, but in our case, we had a shitsucho. And he sat over here on the side where you could see everything. Next to that was the main supervisor, I suppose. Her official title was shunin, which is like kind of like senior staff, maybe not quite management, but somewhere in between. And she was the main supervisor for all of the JET participants in this team. So she was basically the boss that I reported to and communicated with the most. Next to that, we had a Portuguese interpreter. Another interesting thing about Izumo is that there was a very, very big Brazilian population, many of them who had Japanese ancestry, and they came to Izumo to work in factories like manufacturing electronic components. And of course, most of them speak Portuguese. A lot of them didn't speak Japanese fluently or English, so the city decided to hire a dedicated translator and interpreter who can speak Portuguese and Japanese. So this lady herself was a Brazilian woman with Japanese ancestry, and she spoke both languages very fluently. She was super, super nice, and I really liked working with her. Across from her was another CIR from Finland. I was super lucky that she was here because she had actually worked professionally as a translator and interpreter in Finland for several years. Like, this was not her first job at the city office. Like, she already had a lot of professional experience, and she was super, super good at her job. Like, everything she did great translations, interpreted really well, Every time she gave a talk at a school about like Finland as a country and Finnish culture, always like super entertaining and super educational. So I learned a ton from her, and like I feel really lucky that she was kind of like my co-CIR, so to speak. And yeah, next to her was my desk. Overall, it was a lot more casual and a lot more friendly than I had expected. Because, you know, like when it comes to working in Japan, everyone thinks that it's horrible, the work culture sucks, you have to do overtime, and you have abusive bosses and all sorts of harassment and stuff. Though that is a problem in many companies, in many workplaces in Japan. I think it's starting to get better, but it's certainly not in an ideal situation yet. But anyways, I went into this job not really knowing what to expect, but it was much better than I had expected. Everyone was just a normal person who wanted to do their work and go home at the end of the day. I would say my direct supervisor, there were quite a few times when I thought she was being a bit strict or unreasonable, and there were times when we kind of disagreed on things, and it got a little awkward. But like looking back, it's like, I mean, this was my first job ever. I was like a cheeky 22-year-old, just fresh out of college, and I was pretty immature for my age, I think. So I probably pissed her off more times than she pissed me off. So, you know, it is what it is. As far as the work itself goes, I would say most of my work, maybe like 60 or 70% of it, was translation. I think I had a more translation heavy position as a CIR. So yeah, like on like the average workday, I would usually be in the office. I would check my emails, and I would have emails from other departments in the city office asking for translations. For example, maybe the department in charge of insurance, maybe they had updated one of their documents for like applying for insurance, and they wanted me to translate that. Or maybe the city added some new incentives for like parents of newborn children. Maybe they're running like a workshop. Occasionally we would also do some like tourism related stuff. Like Izumo, despite being like way out there and being considered very like rural, it is home to Izumo Taisha, which is a pretty major tourist destination. And like one of the most like silly translations I did was like, I think in 2026, Pokemon Go was released to the world, and we had problems where, you know, people would be walking around like smartphone zombies, bumping into things. So I had to translate a poster that they put at Izumo Taisha on the shrine grounds that was like, please don't play Pokemon Go on the shrine grounds. Anyways, you get some quirky things happening like that too. I didn't do as much interpreting though. Maybe like once or twice a week, we would have like a foreign resident come to the city office to do something. They would have trouble communicating with the person at the desk, and then I would get a call being like, hey, can you come here and interpret for us? So yeah, that happened sometimes. So I helped a number of people, you know, like register their addresses and sign up for insurance and pension and stuff. It was pretty cool. Like, I got to meet and talk to a lot of different people who, you know, like who had completely different like careers and life paths from me. Like there were quite a number of like researchers and PhD students from like South Asia and Southeast Asia, a couple from like Mongolia. Like I've never met anyone from Mongolia before in the US, and that was pretty cool. And then I think the most fun part of the job was maybe once or twice a week we would have the chance to go out and visit like a school or a library or like a kindergarten and do our international talks or workshops. So sometimes I would go to like elementary schools, sometimes junior high schools, and sometimes high schools, and I would just be like, yeah, I grew up in America, it's this kind of country, this is what we're famous for, this is what you can expect if you are to go visit yourself. I also went pretty frequently to like hoikuen, so like nursery schools or like preschools. And here, I mean, yeah, the kids are like 3 years old. I mean, they barely even speak Japanese at this point. So we can't really sit them down and just give them a talk for like 10 or 15 minutes. So what we did here with the younger kids is we would just play games, like English games, like we'd play like musical chairs, but in English instead of in Japanese. Or another thing that the kids really liked was like the whole head, shoulders, knees, and toes song. Like they would follow along and they would try to say the words themselves. So yeah, we weren't really like teaching English properly, so much as we were just, kind of giving them some exposure to basic English words. And I don't know how much educational value that has, but we just do what we can and try to make it as fun as possible. Okay, so this video is actually getting a bit too long, so I'm gonna make a new video soon, and I'll talk about things like what life was actually like at my placement, the apartment they provided, what rent was like, the commute, what I did about cars, and the overall lifestyle. And I'll also talk about like my overall thoughts about the JET program and the pros and cons of being a CIR. Thanks, and I hope to see you there.